What I want to do in this video is just kind of quickly run through a little bit of our analysis of evidence from death scenes activity, where, again, the purpose of this activity was to kind of run through our 3 ways of estimating the post-mortem interval, the PMI, or the time since someone died. Just real quick to review here, we know that there are typically three methods we talk about with PMI. The first one, kind of the least precise one, being our livor mortis, which again kind of means color of death, where if a body is positioned, after about 2 hours, blood starts to pool, so you get kind of redness at the low points. And after about 8 hours, as long as the body has not been moved, remember that livor mortis then becomes permanent. So to kind of sum that up, if we don't see that redness at the low points of the body where the blood has pooled, we know someone's been dead less than 2 hours. If we see that livor mortis, if we see that redness, but then we press it and it disappears, we know we have a PMI of somewhere between 2 and 8 hours. And then if the livor mortis, if the redness is permanent, meaning if we press upon it, and obviously we'd be wearing gloves or other PPE at this point. If we press on it and it doesn't disappear, the PMI would be greater than 8. Second method of PMI we know is rigor mortis. We talked about that in one of our videos last week. Again, it kind of gives us that time frame somewhere up to 2 to 36 hours, again, depending on where the muscle stiffness is occurring in the body. And then finally, we also have algor mortis, kind of coolness of death or cold of death, which is our way of looking at body temperature and cooling rate to determine the PMI. So what you want to do in this analysis of evidence from death scenes is use all of the information that's given to you to come up with your time of death. So like for number 1, we have a naked male corpse that was found at 8 a.m. on Tuesday, July 9th. The air temperature was already 26.7 degrees Celsius. The body exhibited some stiffness in the face and eyelids and had a body temperature of 34.4 degrees Celsius. Livor mortis was not evident. Okay, so as I take a look at this, approximately how long ago did the man die, I would come up with each of my ways of estimating. So starting with livor mortis. So if we start with livor mortis, not evident, so we don't see any redness at the low points of the body, so we know that our PMI would be less than 2 hours. But we also are given some temperature and some rigor mortis information. So let's then go to rigor mortis. So with the rigor mortis, we're told that the body exhibited some stiffness in the face and eyelids. Okay, we know that rigor mortis starts typically in the face with the smaller muscles. So if we are having stiffness in the face and eyelids, again, we're looking at relatively early in the process of rigor mortis. So we're probably talking about that PMI of somewhere between 2 to 3 hours. All right, and then that just leaves us with algor mortis here. So again, we know with algor mortis, there's 2 different ways of determining it. It's all about looking at kind of our standard body temperature. So the body temperature, the measured liver temperature was 34.4 degrees Celsius. So we know that's in our first 12 hours there. It's not to that. Remember, the magic number was 27.6 degrees. The body temperature wasn't lower than that. So when we have that higher initial body temperature, we just take our normal standard human temperature, 37 degrees Celsius. That's minus 34.4 degrees Celsius. So 37 minus 34.4, we get 2.6 degrees Celsius as our change. But again, that is just our change. After we get the change in temperature, we have to divide it by our cooling rate, which since we're in degrees Celsius, in kind of our first 12 hours, it's the rate of 0.8 degrees per hour. So after we divide it, we get that answer of about 3.25 hours. So if we take a look at all this information, the fact that we're dealing with someone that's naked, rigor mortis maybe being sped up a bit because it's warmer outside, lack of clothing probably speeding it up. We're probably looking at, again, that PMI of about 2 hours here. Again, looking at all of this information. And with the livor mortis not evidence, not quite to 2 hours. Rigor mortis being sped up because it's a naked body, there are no clothes. So again, we're getting that rigor mortis of about 2 hours. And same thing with algor mortis, no clothing to insulate the body. So it's probably dropping temperature a little bit sooner. So again, PMI of somewhere about 2 to 3 hours. So again, notice we've used all of those pieces of information to come up with that PMI. Maybe we'll say, even I would probably accept 2 to 3 hours, but probably closer to 2 being a better answer. All right, let me try another one here. At noon, a female corpse was found partially submerged on the shore of a lake. The air temperature was 26.7 degrees Celsius, and the water temperature was 61 degrees Fahrenheit or 15.6 degrees Celsius. Rigor mortis was not evidence, and the body's temperature was 15.6 degrees. Livor mortis showed a notable reddening on the victim's back that did not disappear. Bacterial activity was not significantly increased, and the lungs were filled with water. About how long ago did the body die? How long ago did the woman die? So again, as we look at this, we're given temperature information for algor mortis, rigor mortis information, and livor mortis information. So let's estimate the PMI using each of our 3 methods and determine what our best estimate is. In other words, when I say best, I really mean the one that's going to give us the most information. Starting with our livor mortis, it tells us that the reddening did not disappear. So that means we have a PMI just so approximate here. If you didn't get that, that was some sarcasm. We have a PMI of greater than 8 hours based on livor mortis. Again, there was reddening on the back, so that tells us that our victim was lying on her back at the time of death, or right after she died, she was positioned on her back. Because again, the reddening is going to happen on the lower part of the body. That's where the blood's going to collect due to gravity. And if it's permanent, livor mortis is 8 hours. Rigor mortis, we're told not evident. Okay, so we know if we don't have rigor mortis, we're dealing with less than 2 hours or greater than 36 hours as our PMI. And based on our livor mortis evidence, I think we can get rid of that less than 2 hour estimate. So the rigor mortis PMI, again, not very helpful, greater than 36 hours. Let's maybe try our algor mortis here. See if that can narrow it down a bit more. Because again, these first 2 estimates, they tell us some information, but they're not the most useful. They're not the most descriptive. Okay, so we have body temperature, 15.6 degrees Celsius. Oh, remember, that's under that magic number of 27.6 degrees Celsius. I think that was a 12 times 0.8. Sorry, 27.4 degrees Celsius is our magic number. So that means we know it's going to be greater than 12. So again, when we know that our measured body temperature is under that 27.4 degrees Celsius, the PMI is going to be greater than 12 hours. So we have to subtract. Remember, we don't subtract 37. We use that 27.4 number this time. So 27.4 minus 15.6. And then we get that 11.8 answer. And then we have to divide that by the new rate, Remember, after 12 hours, the body cools at a slower rate of 0.4 degrees Celsius per hour, roughly. Again, it's an estimate. So we subtract, we divide by 0.4, and we get that answer of 29.5. But as some of us forgot to do on last week's work, remember, that's only for our hours after the initial 12. So we have to add 12 hours back in there. And we get a PMI estimate using algor mortis of 41.5 hours. So for our answer here, we could probably say she was partially submerged. The water might speed up the process a little bit, but it's greater than 36. So we might have a ballpark answer of a PMI estimate of about 40 hours. So again, you can kind of see on these first two examples, we looked at everything that was given to us to come up with the best PMI estimate. Good luck with the last two. See what you can do.